Morning, mine homies. It's another week has started, and got here a little early so that I could do a video. You know, it's funny that, like, you guys know how I feel. Like, it's this NHI is a Spectrum story, and there's a whole lot of things throughout it that parallel each other. And I've sort of talked about a lot of, like, I think of all this story, this thing that's going on with the NHI Spectrum thing. I think of it like in a video game sense, right? So there's like the How to Hunt universe, like I've talked about, and there's the alien ufology community sort of world, and then there's this, deep dark alien tech, secret ship federation, or breakaway civilization, ultra humanity, whatever. But all of that whole lore, I think of it like that in those sort of like universes, and it's just easier for me to process, I guess. And it's funny because I have recently started, when Christian Harloff doesn't do anything on the weekends with the UAP UFO disclosure stuff, I've started listening to Vetted and Patrick over there. And he seems like a really good dude. Like, respect to him. He really stays on top of his stuff. Like, that dude works hard. But what stood out to me, like, the episode was, I think I talked a little bit about it. This guy went on to his show and was like, yeah, I'm about to do this other show thing or book deal, whatever, kind of bundle of stuff. And it's to do with my father and all these pictures he had of this experience they all had. And there's like a craft and all this stuff. And this dude's name was Ron James. I've never heard of this person. I don't know anything about him, but he just had these pictures and he was like, yeah, I'm about to do all this stuff. And this is some of what's gonna be shown on this thing that he's doing. But, bundle, press release, media tour, documentary, whatever it is. And so, and today Patrick was doing a like live Q&A and about that show he did with the long form conversation with that guy Ron James. And it's funny because I usually don't like to listen to stuff like that, because I don't like really enjoy the format of just like watching listening to a person just read off questions off chat, and like have conversations with people, like through that kind of medium. But I was sort of curious as to what like he was, what he was gonna say. So I sort of watched that. And it's funny because his community that he was dealing with right then, in the beginning of like the video, at least the beginning sort of 45 minutes, was very much like there was a whole lot of elements that was very reminiscent to me, because it sounded very much like the stuff with How to Hunt. And Patrick was like, this guy has this story and he has these pictures And he's, you know, he's presented it all, and he's answered questions, and he's done this long form interview, and now he's in the chat, and he's in front of us, and he's answering questions now. What more can you ask from a person, for one? But for two, he goes, it's sort of like, what is it that would actually convince people at the end of the day? What kind of, like, how deep is the game of disclosure? Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, how deep does that spectrum of stuff go? Because like it's obviously not, like, the internet is chock full of, like, people that had a cell phone, and they were like the Lubbock Lights, the Phoenix Lights over Phoenix. Like, all this stuff is out there, and you know what I mean, and it's changed to nothing. The majority of especially Americans, but the majority of North Americans, certainly, like, none of that's changed our lives or impacted any of us or anything like that. Like, nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nothing. And Patrick kept sort of saying in a lot of different ways, like, what is it actually going to take for, like, the paradigm to shift? Like, okay, we are not alone, and they're here, so now what? And that parallels almost exactly a lot of the times, like, Steve on How to Hunt, in that little world. Like, he asks that a lot. Like, he tells people, like, people will write to him about, like, their experience or whatever, or a lot of times someone will write into him on their theories of what they've heard on How to Hunt, and what they think in regards to, you know, what was said by some report he read, some email he read. And he's always trying to, like, make sure, like, direct people correctly, because he goes, people are always like, well, and I just don't understand why the government, blah, 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 and I just don't understand why we can't just settle this one way or another. And I don't know, like, there's all these shows and all these crews that try to find and locate all this stuff, and I don't understand, like, it's just not happening. And Steve's like, first off, we're not going to be able to rely on the government for anything, so you might as well, like, just prune that whole idea out of it, because anything they say is going to be a lie anyway. But here's like, it's them coming out tomorrow and saying, like, oh yeah, there's a Bigfoot. Like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, it's, the source is unreliable. It's completely corrupt. It's completely, they've lied the entire time, but now they're going to tell the truth, like, after 100 years of the opposite. Like, no, every truth is going to be some sort of work, manipulation, whatever. Every continuous lie. That's always going to be. So that can't, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to get over that one, essentially. And I tend to, like, agree with him. I don't think that in relation to the government, when it comes to this kind of stuff across the whole NHI story lore, I don't see the government ever willingly not continuing to lie and not continuing to try to manipulate in tandem with their, you know, 3-letter agencies and infiltrating ufology, and, you know, and then Area 51 gets on the horn, and Area 51 gets on the horn, and they're gonna tell us all about their, you know, cool tech and stuff that, you know, so apparently happened out there in the desert in Nevada. But if they ever have to actually say or admit a thing, it's going to be because of some sort of catastrophic disclosure event. Like, it's not going to be, and a lot of people, ironically, side note real quick to what I just said, a lot of people all across the internet say that that's exactly what's going to happen, but they say the catastrophic event, because of the super tech and all that things, is going to be a false flag operation, that they're going to like pretend to do an alien invasion, however you would do such a thing, with holograms. I've heard different, like, it's going to be with their super tech ships, it's going to be with holograms, it's going to only be, you know, so I'm just saying that exists. I don't think that, but I mean, it's talked about quite a bit. But so but if they ever have to admit anything truthfully to us as the American people, as the North Americans, as the global community, it's going to be because something wrenched it out of their grasp, essentially, because of a catastrophic disclosure event force. Like, and like, they're going to it's going to be wrenched. The truth is going to be ripped from them. And that'll be the only time that they actually will be like, oh, okay, yeah, like, actually, this has happened and this does exist or whatever. But even then, like, if you know, but if it's okay, so like, if that happens, it's going to be, it seems to me, it's going to be because of that. But if they ever just come out with anything, because, you know, some lawyer that just went to Washington to change the world or whatever kind of process like that, anything they ever say in the regards to how the system works and the system itself and like the American government, like, they're never just going to come out with the truth and just give it to us. Like, they're like, no. And if so, like, that's one part of what Steve says. The other part of what Steve says is, he's like, look, man, like, this is in reference, he always says this in reference to Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Sabe. Always. He's like, look, it's done. It's over. There is no more proving. There is no more, like, he's like, they've done, like, there's like 1,300 different sample studies that they've done, and it said the same mother, different source of fathers, but the mother was human. I have no idea about any of that. I don't really know how that part works. But he's like, all that has happened, right? And he's like, but then he's like, I literally have received like 50,000 emails since I've had this channel of people saying that at some point in their lives they had this experience. Oh, guys, it's getting so hot in here. And like, he's like, I've received at least 50,000 emails since I've had this channel of people saying basically those words. Like, I had this experience at some point in my life, and it's altered me for the rest of my life, and it changed me, and it impacted me, and I will never ever be the same from it. I will never forget it. And he's like, he's like, in his mind, it's done. You know what I mean? And Steve, in the way Steve sees it, and I have to agree. Like, I have never had any sort of experience. I've never seen a UFO. I've never had a Bigfoot experience. I'm from the flat tabletop desert of southeast Mexico, West Texas, where you can see, you know, 100 miles in all directions because there's just nothing out there. And I like, you know, there's no Bigfoot. There's that, like, it's not where they would be. But like, you have to give it to Steve's way of thinking, because they've done all the science and all that stuff. However, that's worked, and that's identified